last session this morning here. Then we have another one 4 hours later in the afternoon. So if you want to come back, you're most welcome. And then we'll be here the last weekend of September. So thanks again.
Thank you, with pleasure. This is awesome.
Yeah,
Enjoy. I will come back in. I'm just going to have lunch and then I'll be back.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Hey, Nick, how are you doing?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
So the one thing having in common with Siobhan is that both of you invited me for wonderful dinners at your respective places in London and New York. And I was just remembering that I was being schooled by your daughter on TikTok. And now TikTok is such a big deal, right?
A very big deal in the United States, or maybe not so much a big deal soon.
Well, let's see what kind of bid there will be, because they're niche in the market and the teens love it. So if it's not TikTok, it's another company taking over. The need remains. So just for the quick intro, to avoid taking too much from your time, I met Nick via a common friend who basically had one of those magic synaptic connections in his brain, as in like, Marcelo, Nick, yeah, you two should definitely have a conversation. I do recall getting lost in Berlin because I was having that chat with you and I couldn't use a GPS at the same time. So I missed the meeting that I had, and was definitely a time well spent. And you have a super interesting life. So I'm sure you have lots of wisdom to share with us here. And please, the floor is yours. Let us know how I can make the future generations wiser faster.
Great. Well, thank you for that. That introduction. So my name is Nick Jekogian. I'm based in New York City. I'm a real estate developer. I've been in the real estate business essentially all of my adult career, ever since my actually early years in college. I wound up having an opportunity to do an internship in a real estate firm and stuck with it. Had no real estate experience prior to kind of walking in and helping this real estate company on their technology side, because I had some technology experiences being a sort of a young person, more than others in the firm, and wound up turning it into a career. It's been a very good career for me. I really enjoy what I do in the real estate business. I do deals all over the United opportunities to see various places and do interesting transactions and meet great people. It is a great field to be in. I don't know if anybody on this call is interested in real estate. I'd be happy to talk to them further if they are interested in real estate investing and development. But I guess when Marcelo told me about this call, what he said was, come prepared with a story about your life. And I think that so much about the way we live our lives is by hearing other people's stories. So happy to share a bit of a story. I think with all of our stories, we have bad moments and good moments. And I think the lessons we learn sometimes are learned in sort of our darkest moments or our hardest moments in our lives. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some hard times I've had in business. In the United States, and actually even all over the world, there was a financial crisis back in 2008, 2009. It struck the real estate industry especially hard. It was a financial crisis. Real estate values decreased significantly over a fairly short period of time. I was running my real estate firm at that time, we had what is called high leverage, meaning that we owed a lot of money to banks all over the world. And when the real estate property values decreased substantially, we lost a lot of money. Tremendous amount of money was lost, and a lot of pressure was on to repay back the many banks that I had debt with, and I wound up in a very tough financial situation. I was the owner of the firm, as I have been for 20 plus years, and I was stuck in a situation of having to pay back literally hundreds of millions of dollars with assets that were not worth nearly that much. And it was a very difficult time, both I guess business wise and personally, because so much of my business, or so much of, I guess I should say, so much of my personal life revolved around my business and running my business, and the highs and lows of my business. And this was definitely a low of my business. And I'm actually not going to talk too much about the financial situation. It was just a horrible financial situation that I needed to spend many years, almost a decade now, working my way out of and cleaning up. And fortunately, I've been able to clean up the financial mess, and things have gone well. What I am going to talk about, though, is the shift in prioritization that situations lead to, and that is, what happened to me was I went from, I guess I'll call it, being very, very wealthy, and doing real estate transactions, all over the country, very busy, and all of a sudden everything came to a halt, and I needed to reprioritize, reinvent myself, I guess is one way that people put it. So I had to go out and find kind of like what I wanted to do, how I could be doing something different with my personal life. I guess I'll call it more so than my business life. My business life was thrown into turmoil, and I needed to fight that out. But I think unfortunately, sometimes in our lives, our businesses and our careers start to define us, and this became a situation where I had in the past been defined by financial success was gone, just eliminated literally overnight. All of that financial success that I had worked for many decades, or a couple decades, disappeared, and I found myself having to reprioritize, and that's exactly what I did. I started working with some social enterprises, and I had the opportunity to help social enterprises that are in the nonprofit space, but also having some business element to them. And I had created the opportunity to work with them, help their business models focus on profitability. And it gave me an opportunity that I probably wouldn't have had if I had a thriving business at the time. And I started working with many social entrepreneurs all over the world to add business models to their social projects. And it gave me an opportunity to see the world in a very different light, and see success in a very different light. So it really became a story of reinventing myself, and taking a horrible financial situation and turning it into a new opportunity for myself, and a new way of life, even in general. So I started working with various social enterprises all over the world, bringing business models to them while I was running my business, and reprioritizing. And I love it. I love the sort of the new me, the new interesting things that I get to do. Interestingly enough, my business has done well with spending sort of, you know, less time running the business and more time doing other things that I'm interested in doing. I've rebuilt the business, and it's financially doing fine now, and things are good there. The social enterprises that I work with have done very well. They're doing great projects all over the world, which I think is really important. It's allowed me to make a much bigger impact on on the world, on other people, and I found reinvented myself to some extent, and feel that in doing that, it has enhanced my life and my family life. I guess I should say also, it change in business also gave me an opportunity to change my opportunities with my family, spend more time with my two daughters, who were probably the same age as some of the audience here, and I guess, you know, the main part of my story is that we're all going to get hit with things that are going to seem really bad at the time, but they are learning lessons for us, and they're opportunities to change, to reinvent ourselves. And I think that we all have to really take advantage of those opportunities when they happen. I think there's two different ways that you can handle that opportunity. You can take it, and you can make it negative, and you could sort of, you know, wallow in all of those bad thoughts and do nothing, and or even try to do the same thing over and over again that wasn't working or is not working. Or you can step back, sort of look at things from a bigger perspective, a different perspective. You can ask others for advice and for what they think you should do at the time, and then change. And I think it's vitally important that we continue to change as we're progressing, as the world is changing. We have to change both our business models, our personal models, our personal focus, career focuses. When I got on the call, somebody was talking about fashion, and that's definitely an industry that changes very often. And I think that we all have to look at anything we take on, or any career, as an opportunity to continue to evolve and to change. Sometimes it takes a big financial meltdown to convince us to change, and other times it might be just a new season, and we create something new. So that was kind of like the quick story that I wanted to tell about something that was in my in my life. It was a situation that I had to deal with, and I dealt with it in a way that allowed me to evolve and change and do many things that are important to me in life now. And I think have a much greater impact on other people in the world, and I'm happy that it happened. I'm very happy that the financial crisis that at the time I thought was the worst thing that could happen to me and my business, has now become a blessing. And I really want to emphasize that all of us in lives, in our careers, in our personal lives, will go through difficult times, very difficult times, and we have to use them as lessons to to one, realize that not everything is going to be as good as we thought it was going to be, but we also have to use it as lessons to change, to be the impetus to modify our past trajectories and past business models or life models or career models, and move on to other things. Even as we sit here now in the midst of this global pandemic, I think it's giving a lot of people, even myself, my daughters, pause and opportunity to think differently, reprioritize, not have any more FOMO. I guess fear of missing out seems to be such a big topic nowadays, or had been, and then all of a sudden we have this pandemic that presses pause on our busy lives. And for the past 6 months, many of us have been slowed down considerably. I know myself definitely, and it's given us an opportunity to to reconfigure, rethink about what we want to be doing in life and how we want to be living our lives. So it's another great example of when we're dealt with something that could seem pretty negative. I think that years from now we'll be looking at this this global pandemic as a great thing that happened in the world to reinvent the way that we live. Even in the real estate business has been changed dramatically over the past 6 months because of the pandemic. I live in New York City, and for a time, fleeing the city because of this this virus. And I think now there's many things that are going to be changing with the way that we live in cities, the way that we live in other more rural areas, and I'm looking at it as a great opportunity to reassess some of my real estate investments, as well as reassess how I look at business, family life, and real estate development for the next decade or two. So I think it's really important to take these what seemed like at the time sort of insurmountable hurdles in our lives and turn them into life learning lessons, so that we can find the positive opportunities from them and the impetus to change. So that's what I've done in my life, especially after the financial crisis, and I continue to do that now in COVID times, and I'm sure there will be many other situations that will happen in my life and all of our lives here that will give us that impetus to change. So my big lesson is always be open to finding other ways to do things and to live our lives and live our careers, and be open to change. So that is my quick story, as Marcelo had mentioned. Share kind of a quick story and then open it up for questions. So why don't I just leave it at that, and if there's anyone that has any questions, I'd be happy to to answer.
I just make a bit of a comment rather than a question. When it comes to real estate market, if you're in a commercial, like the shopping center space right now, even before COVID, your life is not trivial, right? No, there are lots of shopping centers have been converted into warehouses and all that. You just happen to be in a different segment of the industry, so you're like, whew, close call, but no, I'm okay. It doesn't impact me. The fact that Amazon is going to be acquiring the planet pretty soon, if they follow their current trends, it still would not prevent people from looking for a place to live and raise their families, and everybody wants to be close to attractions, whatever attractions tend to be. New York tends to be the kind of attractions most people want to be close to. I mean, I live in a farming village in Switzerland. That's what I'm looking for. I am not part of the majority. That's if most people on the planet were told you can live in Manhattan or in a Swiss farming village, we know how that vote would go. And the other element that is worth mentioning is a word that should become more popular. I will do my best to make sure it does. It's called hormesis. And hormesis is stress that is good for you, right? So stress actually has two declinations. There is distress, the negative one that is always bad, as in you really don't want distress because it doesn't build any resilience, it just is just destructive. And then there's eustress. And eustress is the one that actually makes you stronger. Like you go to the gym, you get bigger muscles because you're breaking the cells, and when they get repaired, they get bigger. And they also get kind of waterlogged, which is why sometimes you're not getting bigger muscles, you're just getting water retention. So you need to tell the difference. I mean, is that actual growth or is just water that is getting into the system, right? There's a different level of measuring. But the word that summarizes all of that is hormesis. And hormesis is a state of stress which allows our bodies to be ready when they hear the leaves ruffling in the forest. Like it could be a lion, maybe it's just a bird, but I have to be prepared in case it's a lion. And one of the jokes, I mean, I'm trying to collect wisdom related jokes to eventually publish a book for the teenagers. One of the jokes that would apply here, those two explorers in the jungle, and all of a sudden they spot a tiger, and more importantly, the tiger spots them. And one of the explorers just goes down and starts tying the shoelaces of his boots. And the other one says, "Are you crazy? You think you can run faster than a tiger?" And the classic answer is that I don't have to run faster than a tiger. I have to run faster than you.
Right.
This is the kind of mindset.
Yeah, no.
Not exactly a nice guy, but no.
Yeah. No, I get what you were saying, and I do agree that we do need to have stressors in our lives. And actually, I was a long distance runner. So to tie into your stressors, the whole philosophy of training for long distance running is to stress your body to the point where it can only go so far, but then continue to building on that until you ultimately have your 100-mile race or whatever you might be doing. So it's always increasing the stress, and I'm a big believer in what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So and I lived my life like that with ultra marathoning, and I lived my business life with that, with putting stress on the system so that I could grow. Interestingly enough, as you started telling that, the introduction you talked about with the shopping centers and retail, especially in the United States being affected by Amazon. Prior to 2008, I had a very large investment in retail shopping center space that I've divested of and haven't really grown over the past 10 years. One of the reasons was because of the impacts of the 2008 financial crisis, but it actually now turned out to be very good for me, because retail has just definitely been down on a downward trend over the years. So the stress, or the stress back from 2008 and 2009 had actually created a good opportunity for me to invest in different assets. And as a matter of fact, some of my assets are outside of major cities at this point that are doing much better than my holdings in big cities. So so I guess there's a lot of serendipity in the world and in our lives, and we're always going to have that. I think the main thing is creating our own luck, not waiting for luck to happen. And we create our own luck by doing, by going out there and experiencing the world, experiencing life, putting out phone calls and asking people for help. That's what creates luck. And, I'm a big believer in that.
Well, the two things that come to mind. The first one is the Navy SEAL 40% rule, right? When you think that you're exhausted, that you can't go any further, you're about at 40% of your capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just finished a very long water fast, like 50 days. And I wanted to do an ultra marathon equivalent on day 48 to figure out how far I could go. Because I had done a 21 days fast. I think when I met you in New York, we talked about that. And I did the equivalent of a marathon on the second week. But I was training, doing 10,000 steps a day, and it worked out super well. This time I was absolutely exhausted, managed to do half of it. So it was not about the giving up part. It was about that when am I going to be trying again? So I ended a fast, gave myself a week to refeed, gained 22 pounds within 7 days because of rehydration and everything else. And then I decided to do a caloric equivalent of an ultra marathon, which is a track in Switzerland called the Swiss Pass. It's 22 miles, but it go up and down 4,600 feet.
Okay.
For the metric people out there, that's 35 kilometers and 1,400 meters. So you're going up and down the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, twice. And usually they do this track in 2 days, sometimes 3, and the recommendation is 3, and I did it in 1 very long day. So the fact that I hadn't managed to do the ultra marathon after 48 days without any food meant that I just had to decide when I was going to try again. It was not about giving up. It was just about when is the next opportunity. And while I was doing this, I was thinking a lot about this 40% rule because I was really exhausted about half the way. And it was like, yeah, I'm slightly past 40%, so I'm still good to go. And I
now it's
with gas in the tank.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how our bodies are trained to give up earlier than they need to. And it's really about training our brains. In ultra marathoning, one of the big things is hitting the wall. It happens, they talk about marathons in mile 20, and in ultra marathons, when I was doing ultra marathons, I kept hitting a wall at mile, right around mile, I would call it 74 through all the way through to 80 was where I kept hitting walls. And I had attempted 100-mile runs numerous times, 100 miles at one go. And I had dropped out of races a couple times in that 74 through 80 miles. I just couldn't make it through. I'd get to mile like 76, everything would stop, and I just had to give up or ran out of time, whatever it might have been. And I finally was running a race a few years ago, and this. At this time, it was so I was on mile, I'd say 74, 75, somewhere around there. And all of a sudden, this woman, a runner, she had a running number on, came out of the woods and started running with me. And we started to have this conversation. She was younger than me. She was actually this beautiful woman, which ultramarathon doesn't have a lot of women in it. So she was younger, beautiful woman, comes out of the woods and starts running with me at mile 75, which happens to be about 20 hours into this race. So it's the middle of the night. And essentially I start talking to her for probably what wound up being about 2 hours of time. and it got me from mile 75 through to about mile 81, and continuous conversation. Both of us are talking about our lives and all these stories. I remember in like vivid detail all these stories about her life. And then at about mile 81, I got my second wind, and I started going a little faster than her. She was fine with that. She was in good shape also. And I just went off and I finished my next 19 miles, and I was kind of very happy to make it through that that wall as it was. And at some points I thought that this woman was literally like a hallucination, because you do hallucinate when you run these long distances.
Yeah.
It turned out I actually looked her up afterwards, and it was a real person. It is a real story, but it really just shows that you need to have help sometimes to get you over the hurdles, over the walls, and that's exactly what she did for me. She allowed my mind, and this is kind of like some of the things the Navy SEALs go through, my mind to get into a different flow through essentially just the conversation, and allowed me to kind of jump that mental hurdle of thinking that I could not go past mile 75. And 5 miles of distraction, of conversation, wound up allowing me to go through it and run the next 20 miles with no problems at all. So yes, we definitely have many mental blocks, whether it's mental block in our career, in our lives, in learning, in our family situation, whatever it might be. And I do believe that a lot of them are in our heads only. And if we can reconfigure or look at the situation from a different perspective, or ask others to help us, we will get through that. And it's just a reframing. I think that's all there is to to any success in life or failure in life, is reframing it.
Yeah, I mean, the caloric equivalent of what I did last week was maybe 6,000 or 7,000 calories in a day. What you're doing with a 100-mile ultra marathon, which is the longest, right? I mean, it starts at 50 miles. They have the 50-kilometer one, the 100 kilometers, but you probably spend like 15,000, maybe 20,000 calories in a day. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. One of the big things with ultra marathons is being able to eat while you're running, like having a good stomach.
I
Because
was
you do need to bring in a lot of calories.
And I was getting those 1,000-calorie biscuit packages, like wafers, because they're very
right.
digest, while I'm doing the hike and just trying to get 1,000 calories in every hour or so, and that really helped a lot. That's fascinating. And the other point that I wanted to make, you made me think of S. Hunter Thompson, who is an absolute nut job, very interesting one. And he, during one of his interviews, he said something like, the edge, we don't know. The only ones who know are the ones who went over, right? So you're in the kind of situation where your ultra marathon in 2008 was, this seems to be so insurmountable. It seems to be a wall, and you could have hit a wall. You could have just given up in negotiations and just get into the depressive states and all sorts of things. But no, it's the challenge that was actually needed for you to get out of the retail space. And at that point in time, of course, all looks bad. But once you've gone through one of those situations like these, you go like, as I mentioned quite often, what is the universe telling me? I mean, this sounds so bad. It's so difficult. Maybe I should shift the tack. I should not be sailing in this direction. But what can I learn from this lesson? And how can I use those elements to build something fresh that feels right? And that's where instinct, which is such a strong basis of wisdom, is so important. You want to make sure that teenagers build instinct as quickly as possible. That only happens through experience. It's much better for you to keep on trying different things and having those small, cheap failures because that's what's going to save your skin once you know see that giant wall in front of you, and you go like, yeah, I know the hack. Like I can see it. I can see the tiger, and I'll get my shoelaces ready.
Yeah, instinct is good. I mean, I would also emphasize though, and something the last speaker spoke about, is asking for help. You know, people like to give help. So, you know, so when you are in that situation, just like that young woman that ran with me. I mean, we were both helping each other. And you know, people like to help other people. So don't feel bad about reaching out when you're in a insurmountable, or what seemingly is an insurmountable situation. Just feel free to reach out for help. Or when you're building your career and not sure which direction to go, ask for help. People will gladly share you know, their assistance, their feedback. And I think it would be really key for people to realize that other people, later stages of their career, like to help younger people. So that's it.
Oh, that's for
I
sure.
think that's a big element, big learning lesson for me. It's actually something that I wish I had done much more of. I think it's something I'm always lecturing my daughters about, is reach out to people, send letters, send emails, send text, whatever it might be, but make contact with people and just ask for help, and don't feel bad about asking.
Yeah, I mean, during the first NeoA session in May, our final speaker, he is running a $500 million VC fund called Happiness Ventures. And the one thing that I retained from his talk is that people who ask for money get advice. If you ask for advice, you get money. Right, so you get introduced, and it comes with the added layer of thoughts, and someone who believes in your story, introducing you to a person who wants to consider that type of investment. And you kind of end up in the kind of situation where one of the main reasons why I'm doing this, especially the NeoA part of the event because of the pandemic, is to create a space, and I did mention that in the previous session, where the teenagers can feel that they are peers with people like yourself, right? So you're both going to be invited to join a private LinkedIn group called Wisdom Accelerator for Youth. And I want to make sure that the teenagers go like, there is something that I am or I do that is equivalent to this person who is in a position to help me. And all of a sudden you have a bond. You never met, maybe, no, that's going to be a teenager that watched the session 6 months from now, and they want to get into real estate, and they're super curious on how they can do an internship, or how they can even buy stock with help from parents, whatever that is. And that teenager will feel more comfortable sending you a message in LinkedIn or a connection request saying, hey, watch the session. And you are in a position to go like, okay, this teenager would not be in this group without being curated, vetted, and having the level of curiosity that would lead him or her into watching my video. So you'll be more comfortable in terms of, am I using my time well? Is this just a random request of someone who's spamming everybody? It isn't, right? Because there's a curation element.
Now, it's a good point, having, I guess it's called a warm intro. It does help, from my standpoint, when I know that, somebody's been vetted or introduced to me by somebody that I know, I'm much more likely to see it, really, not even pay attention to it. It's more a situation of just seeing, because there is so much messaging out there. So no, I do agree that using the opportunities you have in life, to ask for help, your contacts, your family's contacts, contacts through organizations like this, can be very valuable. Never hesitate to make that ask.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because River Roberts, who introduced us, as in literally he saw the connection, right? No, it's not like I asked him to get an introduction or you asked him. I met River because we went to this event in Portugal a year or so ago, and we were just casually chatting. And when we got to the hotel, it was a 3-day event. It so happened that we became roommates for the 2 nights we were there. It's just like huge coincidence because there are 120 people in the event. So we had this opportunity to go deeper into what I'm doing, what he's doing, and he's going to be a speaker in the next event in September. So
great.
We would most likely have never met without those series of events. So I'm trying to accelerate the rate at which such events of having River Roberts going like, yeah, Nick and Marcelo should really meet, right? There's something there. And I want to make sure that this kind of magic happens, especially for teenagers who are in the poorer countries. They're isolated, they live in the countryside, as the previous speaker was talking about. And that does not prevent them from having the absolute best opportunities in life. In fact, they could have better opportunities than a teenager growing up in New York, but not having the right connections.
Yeah, no, I think it's, I think each of us creates our own luck. And the way that we do that is by reaching out to other people for help. I think that is it's a huge opportunity that young people do not take enough advantage of. So I'd highly recommend that for anybody that's that's listening to this, is to to reach out, not just to me, but to anybody out there. Reach out for help. If you see somebody doing something from career wise that you want to be doing, just take a piece of paper out, write a letter to them, and mail it, and have a return address or an email address on it, and see what happens. There's a good chance that you will get a response.
Yeah, fantastic, Nick. So thanks a lot for staying the extra time and sharing the extra wisdom. I would just like to open the floor to any additional questions before we let Nick go back to his Sunday. That's going to be the final session of this, well, the final slot talk of this first session. We'll be back in 4 hours for the second session. Any questions, anything else you'd like to comment? Sounds like we're good to go. So
okay, great. Well, it was good to reconnect, and thank you everybody for listening, and I look forward to your successes.
Oh, fabulous. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
okay. Bye-bye.
Hi guys, so that's a wrap. I'll stop the recording now, and